Red light pierced through the towering glass panels of Courtroom 3 at the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. The atmosphere was heavy, redolent of aged wood and the nervous sweat of everyone present. The ceiling, fans' creaks echoed rhythmically, as if counting down each second to an irreversible moment, the fateful moment of a man standing alone in that vast chamber. Michael Thompson stood upright at the defendant's podium. He, a seasoned detective who had devoted his life to upholding justice, now faced the very system he had once trusted without question. His navy blue uniform still draped his shoulders, yet it felt as burdening as a cloak tightening around him. Silver strands glinted at his temples, testimony to the years he had spent patrolling dangerous city streets. His eyes, once sharp and unwavering, now shimmered with exhaustion and a fragile glimmer of hope. Defendant Michael Thompson stood solemnly before the bench. The raspy voice of Judge William Harris rang out, snapping Michael back to reality. The judge, a middle-aged man with a stern visage and cold eyes, sat elevated on the judicial bench. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses to peer down at the man before him. Behind him, the wooden gavel rested on the bench like a symbol of irrevocable judgment. A single rap of the gavel against the wood resounded like a chilling gunshot. Based on the evidence presented, the court finds the defendant, Michael Thompson, guilty of corruption and accepting bribes. The verdict fell like a hammer, sealing Michael's fate. An eerie silence enveloped the gallery, where colleagues, friends, and hidden adversaries of Michael sat in tense anticipation. Whispers rippled through the rows of seats. Some faces registered shock, others curled into cold smiles, and a few averted their gaze. Michael remained still, neither crying out nor protesting, yet his knuckles turned white as he clenched his fists against the injustice crushing him. He had sworn his innocence and remained steadfast in his oath as a lawman. Yet the evidence arrayed against him was far too meticulously fabricated. His gaze swept across the back of the courtroom. A pair of intelligent brown eyes stared back. Bailey, his loyal K-9 partner. Bailey lay poised, ears erect, eyes fixed unwaveringly on his handler. The dog did not understand the proceedings, but sensed his master was in peril. Michael's thoughts drifted to his family, his elderly mother awaiting news of her son. He thought of colleagues whose loyalty he could no longer discern. And he thought of Bailey, the partner who had rescued him countless times. This time, Bailey might have to go on without him. Heavy footsteps approached as two sheriff's deputies prepared to escort Michael away. He was led out of the courtroom. Then Michael's voice rang out, low, resolute, yet laced with pain. "Your Honor, before I go, may I have one last moment with Bailey?" The already somber chamber fell into absolute silence. All eyes turned to Judge Harris. In his career, he had never heard such a plea. A criminal trial was no place for sentiment, yet when he looked into Michael's eyes, eyes of a man facing total loss, a flicker of compassion crossed his face. He nodded once. "Granted. You have 3 minutes." The shackles were removed, and Bailey bounded toward Michael. Claws clicked on the wooden floor, echoing throughout the room. Michael knelt, wrapping his arms around the dog's neck, burying his face in its warm fur. "I'm so sorry, my friend," he choked. Tears, so long restrained, fell onto Bailey's glossy coat. "I can't protect you anymore, can't patrol by your side, can't chase criminals with you." Bailey did not grasp the words, but felt their weight. He let out a soft whine, then abruptly began sniffing Michael's jacket with fierce intensity. That single act changed everything in that courtroom. It seemed justice had closed its doors. On Michael forever. The judicial system had shackled him in an invisible cage of corruption. Then something extraordinary happened. Bailey grew agitated. He growled, barked rapidly, shaking the silence. His barking rang out like an alarm bell. He clawed at Michael's coat, each scrape a cry for attention. "What is he doing?" a young deputy whispered, eyes flickering with uncertainty. The oppressive air became tense with anticipation. Murmurs swelled among the spectators. Judge Harris frowned in perplexity. "What is this dog up to?" he asked in a firm voice that betrayed his confusion. No one answered. No one dared breathe. All eyes fixed on Bailey. He clawed at Michael's jacket as if something vital lay hidden within. Lieutenant Mark Davis stepped forward, catching the judge's subtle nod. He inhaled deeply and ran his hand along Michael's coat, inspecting the fabric. A soft, metallic clink broke the hush as something dropped to the floor. Instantly the courtroom froze. All gazes turned to the small object lying on the wood. No one dared move. One man did, the prosecutor, Daniel Young. His face drained of color, then flushed scarlet, then emptied of hue entirely. His hands trembled as he stared at the tiny recording device, like it were a bomb. "That's just a normal gadget," he stammered in panic. "Perhaps a distraction." Judge Harris cut him off. "Silence! The court needs evidence." He did not look at Young, but stared at the recorder as though it held everyone's fate. Then, with deliberate slowness, he nodded. "Play it." A shockwave rippled through the courtroom. Gasping breaths and rustling brakes filled the gallery. Lieutenant Davis bent to pick up the device with shaking fingers and pressed play. Beep, beep. Then a voice boomed. "We need to plant the evidence. No one will suspect. Michael Thompson is the perfect scapegoat. Execute the plan." Time seemed to stand still. No one dared breathe. But they recognized the voice, not Michael's nor the prosecutor's, but Colonel Robert Jackson's, the city police chief and Michael's direct superior, the architect of the scheme who had framed an innocent man. And it was Bailey, Michael's steadfast partner, who had exposed the truth. Chaos erupted as the courtroom convulsed, shouts of astonishment, stunned faces everywhere. Prosecutor Young went pale and lunged toward the recorder to seize it, but Judge Harris was faster. "Stop! This trial is suspended. We must analyze this recording immediately." The gavel slammed again. The session was adjourned. For the first time in dark days, Michael sensed justice resurfacing. Yet this was only the beginning. Judge Harris ordered an immediate manhunt for Colonel Jackson. All exits from the city were sealed. He turned to Michael. "We need you on this pursuit." Michael stood frozen, then nodded. Bailey barked confidently, ready for the most dangerous chase of their careers. They had lost Jackson's trail. The courthouse fell into high alert. Michael gripped his holster. He would not let Jackson escape. Judge Harris's voice rang out. "Block every route. Act now." Michael did not hesitate. "I'm on it." Bailey stayed at his side, ears pricked, eyes sharp. The hunt was on. Special units deployed across the city under Judge Harris's command. Their single target, Colonel Robert Jackson. Michael and Bailey had the first clue. They headed to the city police headquarters, Jackson's power base. Inside, officers avoided their gaze in the oppressive air. Bailey stiffened, sniffed, then barked, a sign of imminent danger. Michael drew his weapon. A shadowy figure emerged, Lieutenant Mark Davis, Jackson's right-hand man. "Detective Thompson, you have no authority here," Davis said coolly, contempt glinting in his eyes. Bailey growled low, sensing the threat. Michael's finger tightened on the trigger. "Where is Jackson?" Davis smirked. "You're too late." Bailey lunged toward the records room door. Michael kicked it open and rushed in. Inside was pitch black, the scent of old paper and stale smoke thick in the air. A laptop sat open on a desk, and a half-finished cup of coffee remained warm. Michael murmured, "He was just here." He scanned the room and spotted a discarded file folder in the trash. He retrieved it, flicked. A way-ash from a cigarette butt. The first page read, "Robert Jackson's itinerary." He flipped to a page listing a location. Warehouse 18 at the Brooklyn docks. 11 p.m. tonight, Michael whispered. Bailey barked, signaling readiness. Night had fallen over the Brooklyn waterfront, the East River's salty breeze whipping through the docks. Warehouse 18 loomed like a foreboding fortress. Michael crouched low, observing from afar. He knew Jackson was holed up inside, planning his escape with destructive secrets. Bailey stood alert beside him. Michael signaled, and the tactical team closed in quietly. He raised his binoculars, noting 2 armed guards at the entrance. Suddenly, a noise behind him. Too late to react, a dark figure struck Michael in the gut. He staggered and fell to the cold concrete. Bailey sprang at the attacker, but a powerful kick from behind sent the dog sprawling aside. Lieutenant Davis emerged from the shadows, a cruel grin on his lips. "Do as my boss says," he spat. Michael staggered to his feet and was immediately struck again. 2 of Davis's men twisted Michael's arms behind his back. Bailey was yanked by his leash, dragged along. The warehouse door slammed shut. The real battle had begun. Inside the dim warehouse, Jackson stood proud, a smoldering cigar held between his fingers. "Fancy meeting you here, Thompson," he sneered. Michael glared with contempt. Jackson drew a long drag and exhaled. "You could have had everything if you'd cooperated, but you chose justice." Michael's grip tightened. "Then let's finish this." In an instant, the warehouse doors exploded inward. Tactical officers stormed in like a storm unleashed. Gunfire cracked. Shouts of alarm filled the air. Michael landed a punch on the nearest guard, sending him to the floor. Bailey broke free, lunging at the man restraining him and sinking teeth into his arm. Chaos reigned. Jackson tried to flee but was surrounded by a dozen armed officers. Michael charged the exit. "Freeze!" came the command. Jackson halted, weapons trained on him from every angle. Michael stood before him, panting from the chase. Blood and sweat darkened his uniform, but his eyes burned with resolve. Bailey growled protectively. Jackson laughed, trying to mask fear. "You can't arrest us all." Michael replied coldly, "Today you pay the price." A familiar voice cut through. "Robert Jackson, you are under arrest for abuse of power, corruption, and fabricating evidence." Judge Harris stepped forward, expression steely. 2 officers cuffed Jackson's wrists behind his back. The cold, steel cuffs marked the end of his authority. Jackson struggled in vain. Camera shutters clicked as reporters captured the moment. Justice had prevailed. First light pierced through the clouds to illuminate New York City. Michael inhaled deeply. Bailey knelt beside him, unwaveringly loyal. "Good job, old friend," Michael murmured, gratitude in his voice. Bailey nudged his hand, affirming their victory. Lieutenant Davis approached, offering a small, rueful smile. "Are you all right, detective?" Michael nodded, eyes distant, toward a new path opening ahead. Judge Harris returned the smile. "This is only the beginning." Michael turned. "You're back," letting out a soft laugh. "I know." And in the dawn of a new day, they understood the fight against hidden forces was far from over. But this time, they were ready.